This is Tulsa 912 Project. I'd like to welcome you here this evening. We open all of our meetings with prayer and pledge, so if you would all please stand, Don Wyatt will come and lead us in the prayer and the pledge.
First, I want us to think about a promise that God made to Solomon. This is recorded in 2 Chronicles 7:14. And God says, "If my people, which are called by my name," and you probably know this and can recite it out loud with me, "shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land." Shall we pray? Father, we thank you this evening for the opportunity to get together in this meeting. We pray that you will guide and direct your Spirit amongst us in our hearts and minds, that we will address the things that you have in store for us, have in mind for us. We come tonight to humbly seek and pray for your forgiveness of our many misgivings, misfortunes, sins, commissions, and omissions. We know that we've let you down on many, many things, and we pray now that you will assist us in understanding what we need to do to restore the liberty and the freedom that you've previously ordained for our country and protected for our country for all these many years. Pray that you will guide and direct those that are ministering to those that are hurting. We know that there are a lot of injuries and deaths and losses in Boston. We pray for those. We pray for those who are suffering in Waco, Texas, and for those that were affected by the storms as they came through last night. We pray that you will use us to minister as you would have us. For these things we pray in the name of thy Son. Amen.
Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. I have one quick announcement that I want to make, and that is that on behalf of the leadership of Tulsa 912, we want to thank Rhonda for the way she handled herself in the commission race. I think that her decision to put cause ahead of ego, I think, is an example for all of us, and we thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. We always try to take this time to honor those that have served in our military, whether you're currently serving, have served, or were a first responder or are a first responder. If you would please stand up so that we can honor you, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I do want to welcome you to the Tulsa 912 Project. This is not our normal meeting night. We usually meet on the second Thursday of each month. Last week, there was a conflict with the scheduling in the church, and so last month we asked, did you want to change the date or the location, and you guys chose to choose the date, so here we are. We've got a lot of exciting things coming up. I did want to talk a little bit about Agenda 21 and what in the conference that we put on a couple of weeks ago, and what a huge success. If you attended that conference, would you raise your hand? Awesome. That's awesome. So were you pleased with the outcome? Yes. Did you like the quality of speakers that we had? It was almost information overload, you know. It was kind of like, and I'm glad I didn't put a speaker in during the lunch break, because I think we kind of needed time just to kind of kick back and chill a little bit and be able to eat and everything. Of course, we finished with that on Saturday night, and on Monday we had a leadership meeting, and I said, hey, guess what I just thought about? And so they're like, oh God, what'd she think about? So on August the 10th, we're going to have a Common Core Curriculum Conference here at the church in the sanctuary. I've already made contact with Jenny White. We're going to get some phenomenal speakers. It's just going to be a day-long event. We're not going to make it 2 days like we did. We did learn lessons. It's going to be $10 per person, so it's affordable for everyone. And we're going to give you a break at lunch so that you can go and get your own lunch. So I would suggest between now and then, I'd go up and down Peoria, see what there places there are to eat. And there is a great Quick Trip right down the street. So you'll be forced to feed yourselves. We're not going to do it this time, but it'll be another jam-packed time. We're hoping that maybe we can get someone in via Skype. One of the conservative leaders that is leading the cause for Common Core, and there's a number of them out there. And of course, Michelle Malkin would be awesome if we can make that happen. But that's in the works. This weekend, of course, we've got the convention, the state GOP convention. How many people are delegates that are going to be attending the convention? Yay, good job. I like to see that. I like to see lots of participation. And so the registrations is from 7 until 9 on Saturday. So if you're going over on Saturday, you need to make sure that you get there early, because you don't want to not be able to participate in the conference because you missed the cutoff time. So I'm hoping that it'll move pretty quickly. Matt said that he would like to try to have the election before lunch. Isn't that what he said, before lunch?
Trying.
Yeah, he's going to try to have it before lunch. And so maybe we can get out of there early, and it'll be a fun and exciting time. The only thing we really have to vote on as far as candidates is the state chairs, which is Amanda's a candidate, and then Dave Weston will be here as soon as he can get here. So we will take that opportunity to vote for a new state chair. Any rule changes or platform changes that need to be made, we'll do at that time. It's a lot of fun. You get to see Republican activists from across the state. You get to make new friends, which we're all about making new friends, right? And it'll be fun. So it's an experience, and I'm looking forward to it. Let's see, there's also a bus. Joanne, do you want to talk about the bus real quick?
Yes, the bus will leave Harvard.
You might want to stand up and talk louder.
The bus will leave Harvard, and I'm reading an email about Mike because his mom fell tonight.
Oh no, so he won't be able to be here?
Yeah, they're trying to find out whether the relative is okay.
Oh no. Hey Dave, come on in, have a seat. I got you some water. Chill out for a minute. We're just going through some.
So the bus leaves 54 from Harvard, o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning. Donna is giving the list to the right of the bus. You go to the GOP website and find information about how to sign up online, and that would be the best way to do that.
Okay.
$20 and
Everybody hear that? What time does it leave? 6 a.m. Okay. So if everybody heard that, leave at 6. That means it'll probably get there. It's a bus that doesn't drive as fast as I do. So it'll probably take it a couple of hours, so you'll be getting there. Look, Peggy's going. She remembers following me in Dallas, and it's like, I'm the U-turn queen, okay? So we've got that coming up this weekend. Next Friday morning is our Breakfast Club meeting. We meet at IHOP at 71st and Garnett. We've got Insurance Commissioner Doak. His first name is John. I'm like, what's his first name? I forgot it. John Doak will be there, and he'll be speaking on things that are going on within the Insurance Commission. So if you have your questions, comments, suggestions, please bring them, because he's going to be there, and we will have his undivided attention.
What day is that?
That's next Friday. That is April 26th.
what time is that on?
That is at 7:30 in the morning. And we just meet in that room, order your breakfast, and it's a real casual, it's a little more casual setting than what we have here. Although this is pretty casual. We just don't show up in our pajamas. Our May meeting is May the 9th. I'm working on trying to see if we can't get all of the mayoral candidates. However, I'm having a feeling that that's not going to work. because I'm thinking Kathy Taylor doesn't really want to show up anywhere. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes, and then our breakfast is going to be on the 24th, which is the Friday before the last day of session, which is May 31st. So we're going to try and get a couple of, a representative and a senator, a state senator, to come in, probably be Brumbaugh and Dom that we'll get in and come and talk about what's going on and what we can do for the final week for the push, you know, the week that they don't sleep, because they're at it, and strange things happen the last week of session. I mentioned the August 10th is our Common Core Curriculum Conference. We're going to need help with making arrangements with volunteers, with, you know, helping up and setting up different things. So if you're interested in helping, please let us know, and I'll put something in an email about that. And then last, I want to say, I want to tell you how proud I am of our congressmen. Today they voted for CISPA, which was the Internet Security, and he was the only congressman in the state of Oklahoma that voted in opposition to that bill. And so I want to say thank you, Congressman Bryden. We are so proud of you. He will probably be here next month to speak with us and talk to us about some of the things that are going on, some of the different votes that are going to be coming up during the session, such as the debt ceiling. CISPA's one. There's going to be immigration issues that are going to come up, and so it'll be a great opportunity for us to be able to have some one-on-one time with him and ask him questions and really make him feel that we are very supportive of what he's doing and very proud of the votes that he's casting. So does anybody have anything else that I need to address before we move on? Eric?
Can I make a small announcement on behalf of Congressman Bernstein?
Sure.
I was...
You're working for him now?
Came in with David and
I'm just wondering, I didn't see you change the hat. I'm messing with you, Eric. Eric, I'm messing with you.
Very, very good. Congressman Bridenstine has just signed on today to be the co-sponsor for House Resolution 577. I might have the name wrong, but it deals with Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act. The Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act. So I just wanted to say that. I wanted to announce it. I know the veterans group will be excited about it. I think many in here are veterans, and we'll help pass that on. But Congressman Bridenstine's name will be added to that piece of legislation within the next few days. And he's an early co-sponsor to that, and it's the Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act.
Awesome. Well, I can tell you that civilians will be very pleased with him for doing that too, because we appreciate our veterans very much. I'm going to introduce to you our two announced candidates for the state GOP. We're going to allow, I'll give you the rules real quick. We're going to have a 3-minute opening.
Okay.
Okay. You're going to have 1 minute per answer, and you will have 30-second rebuttal.
Okay.
Okay, because I like being able to respond back in case there's something that you'd like to do. So each one of you were allowed 1 rebuttal per question, and then at the end we're going to have a 2-minute closing. Now, for the first time ever, we're doing a live stream of this of our meeting. It's something that we've been wanting to do, and this is a perfect opportunity to do it. So we're going to be taking questions not only from the crowd out here, but anybody that might be watching via live stream. Now, we don't have a huge audience just yet because we're just now getting the word out. But this will allow people across the state to be able to sit in on our meetings and participate in some way. And so if we have questions that come via the live stream, we will ask those questions as well. We ask that you try to keep the crowd, the noise down a little bit in the back, because with the camera that we've got, it picks up noise very easily, so just keep that in mind. But that's pretty much about all I've got to say about that. I'm going to introduce Mr. Weston first. I met Mr. Weston for the first time back in February. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
when he decided to run for the office once Matt Pinnell announced that he was no longer going to be seeking the position of state chair. We had a very wonderful conversation at McAllister's Deli, and I know that he's worked on numerous campaigns, and he seems like a really great guy, and I welcome the opportunity to get to know him better, and I hope that you take advantage of this time this evening to do the same. Now, Amanda is a very close friend to myself and to the 912 Project. We've worked together on a number of issues and campaigns. She's the executive director, and I didn't ask wait, hang on, I'll come back to you. She's the executive director of OK Safe, which is Oklahomans for Sovereignty and Free Enterprise. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Incorporated. And she's done some wonderful research and analysis of bills. She has taught us how to get involved in the legislative process, and I've spent many an hour traveling back and forth to Oklahoma City with Amanda lobbying legislators. So I've had a great opportunity to get to know her. I have not had the same opportunity with Dave. Dave, why don't you tell us what you do and give us a little bit about yourself, and I won't take it out of your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I am the manager of a wealth management firm, and I also handle the marketing for them. I've done that now for 6 years. We manage about $150 million in North Oklahoma City.
Good. You satisfied?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who wants to, do you have any determination on who wants to open, who wants to close? Flip a coin. Who has a coin?
Last time, Amanda, we've been kind of interacting, going first and last. And what I was going to say is I went first last time. So Amanda, if you'd like to go first.
You go first,
go
and then you're going to close first.
That's fine.
Alrighty. So we'll let them get started.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Rhonda, and also thank you, Tulsa 912, for the opportunity for this. And I'm pretty sure Matt Pinnell did not have to do this. So here we are, trailblazing. As Rhonda said, I am the executive director of OK Safe, and in that capacity, we started that organization in 2006. And in that capacity, we have been engaged in learning the whole legislative process because of particular issues that had come up. Most of us who had started it would consider faithful Republicans, although it was not started by Republicans or for Republican causes. It was started because of an issue, that the Trans-Texas Corridor. And as we began to lobby and do open records, we realized pretty quick how unprepared we were for what the process was that we were actually engaged in. Faithful voters, we sent them down there, God-fearing people, pro-life, etc., and what was happening at the Capitol was an eye-opener. The open records requests were an eye-opener. And out of that came a desire to be truth seekers, to find out what the facts are of the matter, and to advocate for policy that is based on sound principles. That is what I'm hoping to do. If on this opportunity on Saturdays to become the elected candidate for the chairman, which by the way was not my calling. I received a phone call and was asked to run. Took 4 days of praying before I decided that I was being prompted to take on the challenge. And I'm glad that I did, and we'll see what the Lord has in store, but my heart is with policy, and I can tell you that we are experiencing a disconnect between what the legislators tell us that is happening through press releases and other announcements, and what the legislation and the policies are that we're actually passing are doing. So what I'd like to do is help the party get connected so that what we say we're doing is what we're actually doing. Thank you. I have a minute left. 3 minutes went faster at our other events. I don't know if everybody has seen this. I don't get Time magazine, but on Easter I visited my dad, who's 86, and he gave me a copy of this Time magazine article, and it says, "Can the GOP learn to change, to embrace change, believe in change?" And I like to show this to people because if you'll notice, the background is pastel pink, and the little elephant, as the ideas are progressively introduced, is inflating that elephant. And if you read those plans, the way they want to take this party, that elephant is full of hot air.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm Dave Weston. I'm from Lexington, Oklahoma. Lexington is south of Norman by Purcell, and I'm running for this office because I believe that we as Republicans don't need to change our message. As Anita just mentioned, we just need to improve the delivery of our message. I've been blessed to work with some very good candidates. You guys can look at my resume via the brochure that Eric handed you out a while ago and learn a little bit more about where I'm from and what I've done. But through the course of that, I feel like I've gained a lot of very practical knowledge, and I firmly believe that politics starts at the grassroots level. I believe that the best way to hold our leaders accountable, though, is through the constituents. And I also believe that if the constituents are the ones that help to get those elected officials elected, then they're going to be more willing to listen to those individuals. Those people that help you out and help you get to where you are the ones that you're going to listen to whenever the phone rings. And so my idea of how we grow the party, how we keep our leaders accountable, is obviously to pull people in. This is a wonderful group, Rhonda, and it's encouraging to me. I believe that we have a bright future. I'm not an individual I'm concerned about the direction of our country, yes, but I'm also encouraged about the direction of our country because of the fact that people like you are coming here tonight, and you're going to sit and you're going to listen to me give a boring speech. Hopefully you'll laugh at a joke or two here whenever I throw it out. But you could be doing other things. You could be, watching the NBA playoffs or something like that. That's what a lot of people are interested in. But the fact that you're taking time out of your schedule to come and do something like this, to listen to us talk about why we want to be chairman, that's encouraging to me. And that tells me that we have a hope. We have a future. I would be very concerned if there were 4 or 5 people here. And so, based upon that, I just want to emphasize that we've got to come together as Republicans. I believe that I'm a conservative, that there are 2 types of liberty. There's a true type of liberty, there's a false type of liberty. The false type of liberty says I can do whatever I want. And the problem with that is that if we do whatever we want, eventually we're going to fall into something that's going to lead us into bondage. Because what we know is that actions become habits, habits become, thank you, habits become basically addictions, and so we don't want to go there. But when we talk about the true type of liberty, it's doing what we ought to do. And when we look at our founders, we look at the fact that they believed that liberty required virtue and virtue required faith. And so that's the core of what I believe as a conservative, and that's going to be the core of what I'm going to stand for as a Republican, that we don't need to change our message. We need to stick to our principles and find good people. Thank you.
Is that it? Okay. Some of these questions are addressed to individual candidates. What I'm going to do with those, if I can, I'm going to try to make them general for both candidates to be able to answer. And if it's not asked, then please go to the candidate and ask them yourself after it's done. I think that's going to be the best way that you're going to get a good answer. But to try to direct a question to just one or the other is not going to be as effective as what we're looking for as far as being able to ask the questions of both. So I'm going to start with this one. I just got to this one. If elected as state chair, what do you think is your primary job? Dave.
My primary job is to raise money so that we can have resources to implement the good ideas and make sure that we enact the policies that we believe in as conservatives. We can say that money isn't that important, and I'm not going to say that it's the most important thing out there, but it's probably second next to oxygen when we think about it. Because if you don't have, you can't buy food if you don't have money, right? We can't put together the policies. We have to have the resources in order to support our infrastructure, in order to support our candidates. And if we don't do that, that leaves us vulnerable to the opposition.
Thank you for the question. Am I next?
Yes, you are.
All right. On what I think the job of the chairman is to be to act as a manager and overseer of the policies of the Republican Party of the state of Oklahoma. And if you read the rules, that's what it describes as the role of the chairman. And the GOP rules are available on Tulsa's website, GOP website. They're not on the main website, which they should be. And if you look into page 11 in there, it says that the enforcement of the rules of the Republican Party is the primary function of the chairman. The election of these committees, the Finance Committee is in charge with devising the ways and means of financing the activities of the party and to support those national campaigns as they come up on occasion. That's what they're supposed to do. But number one is not money. The number one is to enforce and oversee the application of the rules of the Republican Party of Oklahoma.
Okay. Do you have a rebuttal for that?
No.
No? Okay. That should answer this question that was asked, which was part of the duties of state chair is fundraising. And it was 3 parts. What experience have you had with fundraising? How much have you raised? And how will you continue to raise funds as chair? Do you want to address that, or do you think that that was addressed in?
I'd love to address it.
Okay. Then let's let Amanda address it first. And so the question is this. It's a 3-part question. Part of the duties of state chair is fundraising. What experience have you had with fundraising? How much money have you raised? And how will you continue to raise funds as chair?
My background is not in fundraising. My background is in business management, which means you control the inventory. I was a director of control and then an operations manager for 2 large retail establishments. The last one was a $23 million a year national chain. And I oversaw, I had 17 direct reports, and we were very profitable under my management because I was able to control costs. That's one thing that we can do as a party, is to control costs. The other thing is that fundraising, I reject the premise that that's the primary position. The object of the chairman is to oversee the rules and the application of the party's rules. And yes, there is campaign finance raising in that, in funding the party. But that is, if money is your number one focus, and I'm afraid that you're going to start putting aside or begin to compromise on the issues in pursuit of money instead of policy. And I would like to bring us back to, let's put our focus on policy, the money will follow.
My turn? All right. Well, I would totally disagree with that, because if you don't raise money, you won't have resources to support your candidates, and eventually your policies won't mean anything because you won't have the majority in place in your legislature in order to implement those policies. And so it makes you vulnerable by not doing so. Fundraising has to be very deliberate. My background is that I've raised money for my church, I've raised money for my fraternity, I've raised money for my party, and I've raised money for candidates. I would hesitate to ask or to answer what that would be, but several of those campaigns involve raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in order to be a successful fundraiser, in order to generate the funds that you must get, it has to be very deliberate, and you have to make it a priority. If you don't make it a priority, it will not happen. Every candidate that I've worked with had to spend at least half their time raising money, going out and asking people for money. And if you don't do that, you won't have the resources necessary to be successful. All the great ideas in the world do no good if you don't have the resources in order to implement them.
Would you like to rebut that?
I think in the last couple of elections, there's been evidence that of a grassroots swelling movement has produced very successful fundraising through something called money bombs. And if you've got the right candidate, the money will flow. And I would like to get to the point where we don't have to have $1 million to run a candidate in the state of Oklahoma, to level the playing field so that we can get quality candidates over those that are most marketable.
Well, I guess I would just say this. You look at the candidates that I've worked with, we haven't raised the most money. We've raised enough money, but that money has to be, that amount has to be very significant. In the Bridenstine campaign, we were outspent probably 10 to 1 when you look at the outside money spent. In the Langford campaign, when you look at the top 2 fundraisers in that, he was probably outspent 7 to 1. He raised enough money in order to be successful. You have to make it a priority, or it won't happen. It just won't happen. It's just like if you go out, if you try to plant a garden but you don't put seeds in the ground, it's not going to happen. If you don't raise raise money, you're not going to have the seed, you're not going to have the harvest in order to support your infrastructure.
Okay, we have a question from live stream.
Yeah.
Okay.
What will you do to help stop Common Core?
Dave's turn to go next. Or first, I'm sorry.
First, okay.
Yeah.
To help stop Common Core, I mean, I guess I view my role more than anything as being supportive in nature. This is not a legislative position. This is not a go beat people over the head with the platform, with your position. The problem with the platform right now is it's so big and it's so cumbersome that it contradicts itself. It's 46 pages. And there are parts of the platform that contradict itself and nobody knows what's in it. And so if we're going to try to hold people accountable to the platform needs to be refined down to where it's about 2 or 3 pages and very simple. God gave us 10 commandments. In Micah, God narrowed it down to 3. Love mercy, act justly, walk humbly with your God. And then in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus narrowed it down to 2. Love your neighbor as yourself and love God. And so based upon that, we get so caught up in the rules and we create paper tigers that don't really hold people accountable. And I feel like we've got to be careful of that. So we come back to Common Core. We just got to make sure that we have good leaders in place that are going to make good decisions.
Amanda?
I think the Republican Party has a responsibility to adhere to the platform and its general concepts. I would agree with David that it's too long and does need to be cut back. But on the issue of Common Core, it goes back to finding and recruiting candidates who understand what the platform is, understand what the dangers are, who understands what policies are that are out there. Common Core is one of them. It does need to be reversed. And we could find and recruit and encourage our elected officials, the leadership in there, saying that this is very unpopular, it's a dangerous concept, and it's also tied to health care reform, by the way, which they all campaigned against. And so they encourage them that the language that was to repeal and terminate that P20 data council needs to be advanced. And yes, the party leadership can hold the elected officials accountable and doesn't have to make a press release, but they can start making phone calls and lobby in defense of and advocating for the principles that I bet you all of them campaigned for. I do think the Republican leadership needs to take stands.
Do you want to rebut that?
Well, I think that's a very big burden to take because a lot of times our standards are so subjective. And they're individual standards that wind up being subjective. And so we've got to be careful because it sounds to me, Amanda, like you're going the opposite of where we ought to be. You're wanting to concentrate power in your hands when we as Republicans believe that it should not be concentrated. And I believe that the best way to hold leaders accountable is through the grassroots and through the people, not through a party chairman that's constantly beating people over the head with what they should or should not be doing.
Yes, you can rebut.
Yeah, good thing, because the power is in the people of the state of Oklahoma, and the leadership has refused to listen. There have been numerous rallies against the Common Core state standards. There's a national pushback against the Common Core state standards, and the party leadership can be, not that they're concentrating power, but encourage the elected officials to listen to what the people are telling them instead of ignoring them.
You're trying to concentrate power into the state party chairman's position.
Okay, we had one that was in reference to the Rule 16 that was changed at the RNC. And hang on, because I'll find it. What is your position on Rule 16?
There's a very heavy.
What is Rule 16? You gotta
Rule 16 is the rule that states that the presidential nominee can change the delegates from, if they don't like the delegates that the state or the district or whatever has selected, that they can replace those delegates with people that they feel are more representative of them. Am I correct? Okay,
Who's first?
Amanda.
Right.
I was dismayed. I watched it online. I didn't go to the RNC convention, but Rule 16 was the one that was adopted that would actually nullify the delegates' options and actually caused them to be not a delegate any longer, and it was a dangerous thing. When you're talking about concentrating power at the top, that's the one that was concentrating the power in the top of the RNC. It was wildly unpopular. If you listen to the voice vote, the voice vote at the convention in 2012 in Tampa, Florida, it was pretty clear the noes had it. And yet, Speaker Biner said the ayes have it because the little teleprompter was prompting with the ayes have it before people were still, I mean, it was already written ahead of time that the ayes have it for the adoption of this rule. That was egregious enough, but the fact that it was a tops-down power grab, the result of that was that people realized, those social conservatives and the liberty folks who were there realized they were not each other's problem. There was another element that was the problem, and that needs to be addressed.
Rule 16 was a very heavy-handed approach, which should at the most recent RNC meetings, they took steps to begin to roll that back. And what I will say is this: by the next convention, I firmly believe that that will fully be taken off the mark, and that will be something that I will fully support and stand up for.
RNC did pass at their spring meeting a partial rollback of Rule 16, right. And that's encouraging. It needs to go further, and I believe Freedom Works has got some petitions in the works to make that happen.
Anything else? No? All right. Okay. Dave, you start this one. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You have a question. I'm sorry.
Yes, I do. How will you build coalitions with core principles that match our party platform?
Core principles that match our party platform. Well, I mean, first of all, you build coalitions by having dialogue. We're never going to agree on everything. I mean, when we look in hindsight, sometimes we make wrong decisions. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. And so what we've got to look at is try to focus on our areas of likeness. You know, the one thing that I've noticed is this: hurricanes, earthquakes, and tornadoes get all the press, but termites actually cause more damage each year than all the natural disasters combined. Well, guess what? The termites are, in the Republican Party, are the infighting that we have from time to time. And we've got to be very careful that we can unify, especially in a general election, to unify around our candidates, whoever comes out of a primary, that we do that. So that, because if we don't, it's the same thing as supporting a Democrat in a primary if we don't support a Republican in the general. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges that we face. That's why Obama has a second term, is because people stayed home, because I'm sick and tired of hearing this lesser of two evils. Well, guess what? When you don't vote for the lesser of two evils, you end up having more evil, and that's not good.
Read the question again.
How will you build coalitions with core principles that match our party platform?
I think from the last 8 years traveling this state and other states, from Kansas to Missouri to Texas and even to Pennsylvania and Washington, D.C., I think I've been pretty successful at already building coalitions. We've gotten a fantastic grassroots network in this state, and that is because we've gotten to know each other. And the natural allies in this state are those who are the, let's call them social conservatives. I hate all these labels. I look at them as Oklahomans. And those who desire liberty. And liberty is a divine principle. And I am delighted that there is this spark in so many people to pursue liberty in that manner, that they know that they're responding to something to throw off the shackles of what they see happening. A lot of them are the young people who are looking at a future that is going to be heavily burdened. And they're wondering, how are they going to survive in this? And they're looking to older folks for not only leadership, but voices of wisdom. And sometimes those discussions can be a little bit animated. Well, I think that's fantastic. I don't run from that. I think it's great. There isn't a lot of things that can't be solved by good listening, finding those things that we have in common, and that we do want to be fighting the right enemy, and it's not each other. It is this heavy-handedness, this tops-down control, and the disconnect between the policies that are being advanced and the press releases or what we're being told. People are smarter today. They know how to check up on things, and they are tired of being lied to.
I'll just say this one thing. As far as building coalitions, I'm proud to say that There are a number of people who have endorsed me publicly and individually who I have worked opposite them in primary campaigns. One of those would be George Fott in particular. George has publicly endorsed me. I worked for one of his opponents, Dustin Rowe, in the most recent congressional 2nd District election. Sheriff Joe Lester in Cleveland County has also endorsed me. And I had a gentleman who was running against him in the primary about 4 years ago. And so I think that's a testament to the fact that I can stand up against people, but at the same time, develop friendships with them moving forward.
Did you want to respond to that at all?
I think we have a fantastic opportunity in Oklahoma. We have fine people in the rural and the urban areas that have a lot in common, and I'd like to continue to bring those people together and bring it into, build a grassroots party from the bottom up, which has been the tradition of the Republican Party, and make it stronger and get good candidates elected to office.
Okay. We're going to start with you. Amanda's turn, right? Okay. Many Tulsans feel we don't always have the voice we need in Oklahoma City. What are your plans to strengthen and grow our party at the precinct level?
I like the story. A lady that called into the radio on KFAQ in Tulsa said that she hadn't heard from anybody in the party until some lady knocked on the door and said, listen, are you interested in getting involved? And just had a conversation with her and began to explain about the precinct. I'm a firm believer that the precinct is the most powerful position. People don't know about it. It's the most powerful position in the Republican Party. It's underdeveloped, and it's a minefield. I mean, it's a mine ready to be harvested. There are people that are out there. You may not get everybody, but if you get Gideon's army in place in the precincts, we can have the kind of party that we want, that is built from the bottom up, where those people have a voice in the entire political process, where we have more people at the conventions, better informed people. And what I'd like to do is continue with a grassroots movement, educating at the precinct level, which involves educating precinct chairmen and networking within their neighborhoods.
That's exactly what I've done with the candidates I've worked with. I firmly believe in relationship-based politics, and that relationship-based politics involved this: going to people that we know were supporters, asking them for their Christmas card list, taking that Christmas card list, sending out an invitation for a coffee in that individual's home, and then we'd say to the wife, man, don't worry about being Martha Stewart, just put on a pot of coffee and some cookies, and we want to have your neighbors and friends and family come in so they can talk to our candidate. We'd spend about 45 minutes to an hour with those individuals. They'd talk to us about issues, we'd answer questions, and we developed a core. If you look at what happened with Congressman Langford in his election, there were 6 other people in that race. If you take all of the contributors in the other 6 races, he had double the number of contributors in that. That's because of this type of strategy. That's how you build the grassroots, is through that type of thing. We've got to start having our precinct races, or not our precinct meetings, back in the precincts, not concentrated like they have been, in my opinion. And then finally, what we've got to do is we've got to make our races, all races have got to be partisan, because they actually are.
Did you want to rebut that?
Yeah, in Tulsa County, the precincts are in the precinct, and it's only by choice that you have them at the county. We saw the model that was being used in around Oklahoma City, and it said that's not right, because it doesn't respect that the power is based in the precinct. The precinct is the supreme authority for the Republican Party in those neighborhoods, and you need to respect that they are representing their neighborhood, and they are free to do as according to the rules. And I think if we do that and let them do what they will, treat them like adults, and then we'll have a better party.
Did you want to respond to that at all?
Well, I just want to finish up with what I was talking about. I believe that all races are partisan, and that I would hope to see legislation that would come down the pike that would make even school board. That's another reason why our precincts are not as active as they need to be, is because we've tried to take the partisanship out of it when they actually still are. The Democrats still treat these races as if they're partisan, and Republicans aren't, and that's why they hold a lot of those places and why we need to take them back.
All right. Question from the live stream?
Yeah. When elected officials violate our party platform and go against the will of the people, will you find candidates to run against them, or keep giving them state campaign donations?
That goes to you, Dan.
Okay. Well, my goal is not going to be to necessarily give campaign donations, because there's never enough money to go around. My goal is going to be to develop resources that we can share with all candidates, and then it's up to those candidates as to how effectively they utilize those resources, which is going to determine whether or not they are successful in what we provide. And that way we avoid this conundrum of giving one guy $500 and another guy $5,000. In addition to that, I'm just going to come back and say I believe that the ballot box is the best way to enforce what's happening, and it's not my job as the state chairman to come in and try to attempt to subvert the will of the primary voters. And that's a concentration of power, and I'm not going to stand for that. We have to respect the fact that when somebody's elected, they're coming out of a primary and their constituents are electing them. No, I'm not going to do that, because where do we draw the line? Where do we draw the line? Who's conservative enough? Who's not conservative enough? What happens when that becomes subjective? That's too much power, and that's not something the Republican Party should be doing.
Can you read that again?
When elected officials violate our party platform and go against the will of the people, will you find candidates to run against them or keep giving them state campaign donations?
The chairman is part of the state executive committee, and the state executive committee would have to examine what's happening with that particular elected official and make a decision as a party what the policy would be. They can have a private discussion with them and encourage him. What the scripture says, you go to the person first and have a discussion with them and see if they will correct their ways. If the state executive committee is reluctant to address that, then I think it would be the precinct involved in that particular district should be encouraged to find an alternative. And I think we would get better customer service if they knew that they were not guaranteed campaign funds just because we don't run another Republican against an incumbent, and we just let them run their 12 years terms out. And I think we, the people, being the customers, would get better customer service if they knew that their time could be cut short if they're not performing according to the standard.
So in essence, Amanda, what you're wanting to do is establish an oligarchy of
Is this a
concentration of
rebuttal or
power.
just a question?
It's my rebuttal, yeah, it's my rebuttal.
Sounds like a question.
Well, you're not the moderator, she is.
Okay. Moderate. Yeah, it's the
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
So, in essence, what you're attempting to do is establish an oligarchy that subverts the power of the precinct and the voters within the precinct, and I do not agree with that whatsoever, because of the fact that it's a subjective standard. Right now, as it stands, the platform contradicts itself in places. So how do you draw these standards? How do you draw that connection? What is the basis in which you do for that? I just fail to see that the state party needs to fall into that. That needs to be the will of the people, and you need to let the free market work and handle itself.
I think what I'm hearing is that you're saying that you would have such a hands-off approach that there would be no accountability to the elected officials within the party, and I think it's an abdication of responsibility to say it's not my problem. And I think that if we have a strong grassroots party that feels free and has access to party leadership, we will see more response from the party saying, yeah, we've got a problem within the party. Ignoring the problem doesn't make it go away, and it is the chairman's responsibility to enforce the rules of the Republican Party, which are pretty specific.
Next question. Amanda, you start. The RNC has announced a desire for more contact with the grassroots, that through the rules controversy and other actions has made the grassroots activists skeptical of this desire. How would you work with the RNC to aid in its outreach to the grassroots?
That's a great question. The chairman of all the state GOP have access to the RNC at annual meetings and other meetings, and so they get to have a voice, they get to have a presence at the table. And as more and more conservatives get elected, or grassroots people, if they get elected as chairman, have the opportunity and the responsibility to say, this was a heavy-handed, I like your word, it was a heavy-handed rule, it needs to be reversed. In fact, it's contradicting. You say with one thing you want to bring people in, and you say another thing with the rule changes that we're excluding you. I think the grassroots are pretty well tired of being used just to put out signs and to make phone calls, and then once the election takes place, they're ignored and cast aside. If the Republican Party wants to grow, that attitude needs to change. And I think it's a tops-down attitude. It can percolate, through. It's not directed from the top, but it respects that people of Oklahoma, or the people of the party, are the one that got them there, and they need to honor that relationship.
Well, I mean, we just
You want
talked.
me to read it again?
Yeah, read it again real quick.
The RNC has announced a desire for more contact with grassroots, but through the rules controversy and other actions has made the grassroots activists skeptical of this desire. How would you work with the RNC to aid in its outreach to the grassroots?
Well, the first place is to repeal that rule that we've discussed, 16. Secondly, I guess I don't need to really look to the RNC to help me do anything. I'm going to rely upon my own abilities to get out there and to meet people. I believe that if you're spending more than a day and a half or a day and a half per week in the office, that you're defeating the purpose. You've got to be out amongst the county chairman, talking to them, talking to people, figuring out what the challenges are within each county. What works in Stevens County may not work in Tulsa County or in Texas County. And so we can't make ivory tower decisions based upon what we're going to do everywhere, based upon limited knowledge. And the only way we can do that is to get out and see the people and meet the people and figure out what's going to work in those areas. Come alongside those county chairmen and help them build their organizations.
Do you have
No ivory tower, just be a good listener and help the counties grow their party. And I would agree that there's a lot of difference between the counties. We have about, majority of them are rural. We have a couple of that are urban, or areas that are more urban. And because we have a representative republic and there's supposed to be a respect for boundaries, we would have to respect the boundaries within the county as well, and the leadership in that county, and just help them succeed as their county desires, and not apply cookie cutter applications or requirements other than abiding by the rules, particularly at the conventions.
Well, I mean, it just seems we want to honor boundaries as far as our counties are concerned and our county chairman, but we don't want to honor boundaries as far as precincts and legislative districts. And we want to subvert the will of the legislative districts as far as elected officials are concerned. And so I see that as a bit of a conundrum, Amanda.
What do you mean you don't want to honor boundaries between precincts and districts?
As far as you wanting to step in and be heavy-handed, as far as legislators and doing things of that nature, we need to let the people at the ballot box elect those officials. And if we do that, then we're going to be fine. It's not a hands-off approach.
I think you're being a little political with the labeling here.
Okay. Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah. How will you work to try and keep those who are elected staying true to the party planks?
That goes to you, Dave.
Mine? Okay. Staying true to the party planks. Well, I mean, there's obviously, let's take Ron Paul, for example. A lot of people hold up Ron Paul and consider him to be a conservative, but then also people consider Ron Paul to be a libertarian in some aspects. And so what aspects are we talking about of our party planks? Are we talking about legalization of drugs and prostitution and things of that nature? Because some people within our party think that we should do that. I'm not one of those that believes in that. Then other people think, they're pro-life, and other people are pro-choice. We have differences within our party, yet we come together and, we may have agreement on 60-70% of what those party planks are. So that's where I keep coming back to, if the chairman is going to be the one that holds accountable, well, at what level, where do we establish this litmus test in order to determine that they are living up to those party platforms, and the level in which they're not? At what point do we extend grace? At what point do we extend discipline? And I fail to see how we go about doing that.
Could you read the question again?
How will you work to try and keep those who are elected staying true to the party planks?
Encourage the districts, the home districts, with the county chairmen that are in that district to have a conversation with that elected official, because I'm pretty sure that that chairman in the county or the district, if it's several chairmen, are probably getting phone calls about that elected official. So the proper procedure would be for the chairman of those counties involved to have a meeting with that particular elected official and ask some pointed questions about what are you doing, how are you voting, whatever the particular issue is. I think we can pretty well agree that, we've already agreed that the platform is too long, but the core principles are there are pretty obvious. It's limited government, respect the rights of the individual, work in defense of life, liberty, and property, and hold to the principles that are part of this Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's pretty simple. It's gotten complicated through different meetings, but hold on to those. And if somebody is actually, again, it goes back to, I think we get better customer service if the elected officials know that they're not guaranteed a 12-year term of office and that the party's going to protect them no matter what they do. I think it's got to be an attitude that can be generated, not a tops-down control, but an attitude. You've all worked for somebody that has a particular attitude. It percolates throughout the entire business. It could be a positive attitude or it can be a negative one. It's a demeanor that can be used as an example. You behave in a certain way and you raise the bar of expectation. The standard is here, and I believe that people will respond to that, and we will get more accountability by the elected officials. I'm pretty tired of saying that the rule is you can't run a Republican against a Republican incumbent.
Did you want to rebut that?
Well, I just participated in a campaign that ran a Republican against a Republican incumbent, and we were successful, blissfully successful. I mean, Congressman Bridenstine would be an example of that. And so, you know, party discipline can be enacted at the ballot box, is I guess what I'm trying to say. And I just see the approach that you're attempting to take as not a one that can be enforced and be subjective, or not be subjective. I mean, it's just you're not giving specifics on exactly how you're going to go about enforcing this discipline, and that's what my concern is here.
Did you want to respond to that?
No, because I didn't understand it.
Okay. Well, would you like for me to explain that?
No, that's okay. We'll move on to the next question.
Well, no, I'd like to. What I'm trying to say here, Amanda, is at what level do we draw the line in the sand and say that we're going to support this candidate, but we're not going to support that candidate?
That wasn't what was said.
What do you mean what was said?
We're not saying we're going to support one candidate over another candidate.
Okay,
we're talking about accountability. How do we hold an elected official accountable?
Right. And how do you do that?
At the county level, they have to meet with the counties that they represent and the chairman.
Right, but how many segments of the platform or the plank do they have to step aside from and not be meeting in order for that to happen?
Let's move on.
How about what they campaigned on? We'll start with that.
Okay, Amanda, what do you see wrong within the OKGOP, and what do you propose to correct it?
I see a lot right with the current OKGOP. I see a lot of positive movement. I like the Minuteman giving, the small annual donations. I see that the fundraising has been pretty successful. And I've already met with Matt, and I said there's no desire to change anything that's working successfully. What I do see is what I said at the beginning, is this disconnect between what we say that we're about, the press releases, and what the public discussion is, and what the policies are that we're advancing. And I think the responsibility is, for a little while, is to focus on the Republican Party. We have every single office. We have nobody to blame for the policies that are being advanced right now, because it's all Republican. And ask them to come back, do a real honest assessment. You all campaigned against Obamacare in 2010, and they immediately turned around and took a $54 million early innovator grant to implement Obamacare. The people had to push back 3 times to get an insurance exchange rejected. Fortunately, on the early innovator grant, Governor Fallon recognized the direction, and she gave the money back, or rejected it.
Say the question again, please.
What do you see wrong within the OKGOP, and what do you propose to correct it?
I don't see a lot wrong within the OKGOP. I think we need to build upon the foundation that's been established, as I've said, and move forward. We have a lot of positive things going on. If we get myopic and look at some of the issues that we're being subjective on, then yes, we can. But we've come so far. We've come so far in the terms of we don't have to deal with Gene Stipe. We don't have to deal with Mike Morgan or Cal Hobson and people of that nature, our leadership has improved substantially within Oklahoma, and I'm proud of that. And I believe that that leadership in Oklahoma, in the form of people like Congressman Langford and Bridenstine, and I believe that Mary Fallon's doing a good job. And incidentally, the insurance exchanges that you mentioned, Amanda, that have worked in the financial services industry, the people that I've talked to did not feel that those insurance exchanges were subject to Obamacare, that they did not meet those criteria. So I take issue with that small portion of what you said. But where I'm coming back to is I believe that there's a lot of bright things and a lot of good things going on in Oklahoma, and I'm going to choose to focus on the positives, not the negatives.
Insurance exchanges were mentioned 278 times in the Affordable Care Act. The model that this state was adopting was exactly out of, funded by the stimulus bill and implemented. Framework was designed in the outlined in detail in the Affordable Care Act, and yes, it is exactly out of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act.
I'll just simply say this: the people that I know and respect told me differently. I guess we have a difference of opinion here.
Well, can't argue the facts.
Okay.
Would you describe your management style as an enabler or a micromanager?
That goes to you first.
I'm an enabler. I believe in finding the strengths and weaknesses of people and plugging them into the areas in which they're strong. That's what I've done at work. I've managed a financial services company now for the better part of 6 years. And then also going back to 2004 when we were able to recruit over 200 volunteers to go to work in Cleveland County, and we distributed over 13,000 pieces of literature, made over 17,000 phone calls, and we won 17 of the 19 races on the ballot by coordinating every race from court clerk all the way up to president and doing that. So you don't get that kind of work done without being an enabler and a good manager.
Amanda?
It's kind of a weird question because usually an enabler is helping somebody do something wrong. But enabling or allowing people to operate in the manner that they are most comfortable operating and respecting that there are differences and different authority between organizations and entities is what I'm known for. I have no desire to micromanage because it's not needed. We're dealing with adults who are elected by their county to serve their counties. And the respect is there to allow those people to conduct the business in a manner that's most appropriate for their counties and to encourage the party to continue to grow according to the Republican Party rules, conduct the conventions according to proper parliamentary procedures, and let them go. That's it. OKSA stands for Oklahoma's for Sovereignty and Free Enterprise. Sovereignty means that you respect those boundaries between institutions and organizations, and no attempt is made to take anybody over, because you do respect those boundaries. I think that's a perfect model for the, too bad the federal government's not respecting the boundaries of Oklahoma and our nation.
What's the question again?
Are you going to rebut it or no? Because that's why you're here, because it was your question, right? That's right, it was your question? Okay. This one's got a few questions on it, so I'm going to pick one for sure. Please discuss the most essential factor in growing our party. Amanda?
The most essential factor is strong precincts and a strong grassroots network across the state, and I think that is pivotal. It is the model for the Republican Party. It is to be a bottoms-up party, one that respects the individuals who have come into the Republican Party, not only because of our platform, but because of the ideals that we uphold as a Republican Party. We have a reputation that's pretty good. I desire that we're not going toward the left, and that's what I think is have drawn in those people who are not only just the social conservatives who favor business, have a business mind, but also those who enjoy liberty and have great discussions within those precincts, but build the precinct from the bottom up. Then you build your county party offices and have a strong network there. And if you do that and you have more actively engaged, a respectful relationship between each of those, respect the fact that the precincts are to be the meetings to be held in their precincts, I think you'll see the party grow.
Dave?
You can see the party grow when you can show that being involved in a precinct can help people be successful. People want to see success, and so they want to see that if I show up for this precinct meeting, you're going to show me how I can help get people elected who are going to make a difference. I received no greater satisfaction than in 2004. One of the reasons I went to work was to support Tom Coburn. And immediately after he was elected, during the confirmation hearings, to see Justice Roberts and Justice Alito be confirmed, that was a great amount of satisfaction for me and really reinvigorated me in my desire to stay involved and stay plugged in. And so if we can convey that attitude at the local level via school board and via city council and via all these lower level offices, county offices, things of that nature, that's what's going to grow, because people want to know that they can make a difference. And there's nothing more disheartening than for somebody to show up to a meeting and begin debating ampersands and semicolons in the platform as to whether or not they should or shouldn't be in some place. And so we've got to be careful that we make sure that we show people they can make a difference and have fun in the process.
On those precincts, we have to make sure that we are actually welcoming the people that show up, even those who want to engage in debate. And I don't think that really at the precinct meetings are you discussing punctuation, you're actually discussing issues and ideas and suggested resolutions. I got started because I was appointed precinct chairman in Tulsa County because of the death and an opening in an office, and was elected ever since then. And the people are out there that are hungry in your precincts for some evidence of leadership out there, and people are going to be engaged. Not everyone will want to be engaged, and you have to accept that, work with the ones that do.
Anything in response to that? No? Okay. Do you have any more questions? No? Okay, I have got, let's see, is it more important for the Oklahoma Republican Party to win converts or burn heretics? i.e., forced, am I right, forced purity or increased membership? That's the question.
You're going to have to read that again.
Is it, I know. Well, is it more important for the Oklahoma Republican Party to win converts or burn heretics? So is it more important to grow the party or to hold the party accountable, is the question, in my opinion.
Who's first?
I think you are.
No, I think you are.
Oh, I am?
Because it should have been a computer, yeah. Take it
Either way,
away, Dave.
okay. Well, I guess, number one, you want to grow, but you don't want to grow at any price. And so you want to grow for the right reasons. But we talk about growing the party. If we focus on quote-unquote burning heretics, we're going to turn people away. So we've got to be very careful about that. And that comes back to what I've been talking about here tonight, is I'm very concerned about concentrating power in a state party position in which we're subverting the will of the primary voter. We need to let the primary voters be the policemen and hold their legislators and their elected officials accountable. And a $500 donation from the Oklahoma Republican Party is not keeping people in office. It's the people that are the primary voters that are doing that. And to insinuate that it's the Oklahoma Republican Party that is helping these quote-unquote legislators that are not sticking to their principles have 12-year terms is ridiculous. It's the primary voters that are doing that. And so we've got to be very careful that we honor what those people stand for and what the people that they elect. And I'm not here to say that we should. Go ahead.
When I heard the word heretics, I was remembering what Reince Priebus was calling those who were believing in a traditional marriage and having a problem with the move to the left and the acceptance of homosexuality as Old Testament heretics. And a heretic is somebody who's rejecting the gospel of Christ. So as far as the heretics, I think that there's been pretty much evidence that it wouldn't be a heretic that got rejected from the Republican Party. It was those who were from the Liberty Movement that were getting forced out or blocked from participation. So it was like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth here. It's like, do we want to have an open door policy to those who desire to come into the Republican Party? Yes, we do, and we should. And that means even if it's coming from the Liberty Movement or it's coming from another avenue, the Christian right, whatever it is, if there's somebody that wants to come in, if they don't like it, eventually they will leave, because they won't have enough in common, really, with the rest of the Republican Party. There's